Welcome to Courtney on Health, brought to you on MalcolmPresents.com, a streaming service that takes you into the portals of Zoom casting.
Of different realms.
At different realms. Do 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 do
Right.
do do do.
Right, exactly.
Anyway, I'll let you introduce the show,
I
which
will
I
do
normally
that,
do.
like I will normally do. So, hi, Courtney, and hi,
Hello.
Malcolm. Welcome to Courtney on Health, the Zoomcast podcast series, which focuses on one's overall well-being with tips on nutrition and exercise given by Courtney Gravenese, who is a registered dietitian with a Master of Science degree in nutrition and applied physiology. I love that, applied physiology. Courtney is an experienced nutritional and health consultant in the New York metro area, and as we say, into the beyond, which is could go to the universe and
The well
Pluto.
beyond.
We're well beyond, and will help guide you on a path to wellness and health. So, bringing in this episode, Life Cereal created a commercial which aired in 1972, a little while back, and featured real-life brothers Michael and Tommy Gilchrist sitting around a breakfast table, suspicious of the cereal because it's supposed to be healthy. They're convinced that Mikey won't like it, since he is supposedly picky and doesn't like much of anything. But lo and behold, Mikey likes it. That catchphrase took off. The commercial won a Clio Award in 1974 and remains one of the most iconic ads of its time. And Mikey likes it. It just keeps going forever. So fast forward to 2023. And breakfast has changed a bit. We have overnight oats now, acai bowls or acai bowls, whatever you want to call it. Breakfast acai bowls, and and breakfast burritos and all sorts of things. But many people skip breakfast as their morning time is limited, and the mad dash to get the kiddos off to school leaves only a few minutes to drink that first cup of joe. But you should leave time for breakfast, as it provides necessary fuel for your body and brain. A nutritious breakfast should include unprocessed foods from each of the 5 food groups. You know those guys: fruits and vegetables, grains, proteins, and dairy. A good breakfast can also help regulate hunger by reducing the urge to snack throughout the day. And for children, eating breakfast has been positively associated with academic performance as well as decreased risk of obesity. And there's a lot of good things about it. So Courtney is
Yes.
Let's get into what the modern day breakfast of champions might look like, and to see if Mikey's gonna like it.
That's right. Well, interesting fact about the Gilchrist family. They were from the town next door to mine. So I knew the brothers.
Get out.
It was a trip. Yes.
Get out.
Yeah.
The Gilchrist.
Yes.
6 degrees.
Long time ago.
Wow. I just picked that one out of thin air. I had no idea. So that's pretty cool. That is awesome.
Very neat.
So what food? Let's get started. What say you on the start to this episode?
So we can certainly put today's topic underneath a bigger umbrella of the importance of breakfast, but I thought I would focus predominantly on cereals, because I feel like they kind of get beaten up a little bit in terms of they're considered an unhealthy option, and it keeps getting worse over the years. So I work with families. I see what I do with my own family. I read through the data, and it's important to keep things simple for parents and people in general in the morning, just to get breakfast options more available, more accessible, and palatable, what you like to eat. And unfortunately, a lot of cereals fall under the category of highly refined, loaded with sugar. Some of them are artificial sweeteners, preservatives, and so forth. So there are certainly those. There are many of them. I'm not going to mention any, but there's one particularly magically delicious one that's going to be very popular over the next couple of weeks, if you know where I'm going with that one. So
yes, you got a leprechaun involved in that one.
Yes.
So yeah.
But there are many healthy options out there that you can include, and these are just some of them. So I thought I would give sort of the bullet points, what to look for in a cereal for either yourself or for your kiddos, to consider it as an option morning. And you said it, Maxine, there, in a perfect world, we're having a combination of proteins, carbohydrates, fats, in that first meal of the morning. Hopefully there's a lot of vitamins and minerals and phytochemicals in there as well. But the reality is it ends up being a quick last minute thought as you're flying out the door.
Mhm.
So oftentimes I'm just happy that somebody has a piece of fruit, if nothing else, in the
Right.
morning.
Have the bananas on the counter for sure.
So that's what makes cereals, in general, a very economical and very quick, easy breakfast, regardless of what milk choice you put in it. And we'll talk about better options for, if you're going to add milk, but things to look for in your cereals. Okay, first of all, the first ingredient, and keep in mind for those of you who aren't familiar with this, and most people are, labels have to include an ingredient list. And by law, it has to be from greatest amount by weight to least amount by weight. So that first ingredient is going to be important. Hopefully that first ingredient is going to be a whole grain. So whole oat, whole wheat, whole bulgur, whole quinoa, whatever it is, it has to say, or should say, whole, and then whatever the grain is. And it should be sitting at that first position as opposed to sugar being in the first position. So that's the first thing you would want to look for. Now let's take a step back for a minute, just about the vitamins and minerals, because the one thing, particularly if I'm working with a family, particularly younger kids, and they're very anti-cereals, I do remind them that a lot of cereals are fortified. Now, in some cases, I understand it's not, obviously, that the vitamins and minerals might not be there in the first place, but they are fortified with vitamins and minerals like vitamin D, like vitamin E, like iron, like folic acid. So it's a great way to get a lot of vitamins and minerals that are particularly low in children. So if you're trying to make peace with it, consider that as an option when you're choosing some of your cereals. And when you look at the panel on the cereal box, it will list out the vitamins and minerals and the percent daily value to help guide you so you know how much there is of each particular vitamin or mineral that's in the mix.
Right.
So look for that. For cereals that don't contain grains, you may find that it's going to be very low. It's a very short list of vitamins and minerals. That is because the laws are different if it doesn't have a grain in it. So for example, a lot of products that have that are gluten-free, that might not be a gluten-containing grain, don't necessarily have to add back any of those vitamins and minerals. So that's some of the reason why you might see very different labels with regard to the micronutrient content.
The gluten-free ones are, yeah, that's a whole different category of cereal, because they didn't have that back in the day of Mikey. It's pretty, I guess, newer than that, but I never really tried the gluten-free cereals. I mean,
well, some of them are, so for example, rice-based cereals have always been gluten-free. Oats, and we'll talk, so corn also gluten-free. Oats, and 10 years ago, oats were generally considered gluten-free option, but because of the ability for cross-contamination, many times if you were following gluten-free or you had a kiddo who was gluten-free, it ended up being a little bit of a gray area because you didn't know for sure. And now there are certain guidelines to follow, but generally oats are a gluten-free option. And there are lots of different sorghum, for example, is being widely used now in cereals as well. So there are certainly options for folks who need to follow gluten-free. So you're going to look for that whole grain sitting in that number one position. The next thing I would ask you to look for is added sugar. Now this is going to be a wide swath here. You're going to see as low as 1 or 0, like Cheerios or Cheerio-like brand. It happens to be one of the lowest added sugar cereals in the business. Another brand that I love is Uncle Sam's flaxseed cereal, also 0 grams of added sugar. So you want to look at that number and hopefully find one that has less than 5 grams of added sugar per serving.
But what about
So-
the taste? What about the taste? Will people eat that flax cereal and not put anything in it? I can't imagine, unless you acquire a taste for it, how that
but
really.
this is where you could add your fruit in, because what I do,
Thank you.
Mhm.
Yeah,
what I do in my cereal is I add bananas
yeah. You can do banana. So
and prunes.
yeah, you could add fresh fruit is a wonderful way to not only add natural sweetness, but of course it's going to add vitamin C, other nutrients. It'll add a little bit more fiber to it. So in some cases, so in answer to your question, Maxine, the answer is it depends. The sweetness from this fruit may be enough for people, but in other cases it might not. So, you know, there are certainly many, many options out there. And I want to bring up sort of balance in people's lives, right? So shredded wheat, there's two different types of shredded wheat. There's the plain unsweetened, and then there's the frosted, you know, shredded wheat. So off, you know, you would normally say, well, they're frosted, it's sugar, it's terrible. And if I'm working with somebody and they're going to say to me, listen, I'm not going to eat your Uncle Sam flaxseed cereal, so keep that in the box. I'm not going to do it. And I'm not going to eat the unsweetened one. So what do I, so you say, okay, there's too much good in that frosted shredded wheat to throw it entirely out. Okay, it's a whole grain. Aside from the sugar that's on top of it, it has vitamins, it had minerals, it is whole wheat. So there's lots to be said about that cereal. So yeah, there's probably more sugar in there than you want. It's probably more than 5 grams. I think it sits at about 6 or 7 grams per serving. So I would say to that person, if that's your only breakfast option, then go with that and find some other spot later in the day to take away your added sugar. You get a budget of added sugar. We don't have to stick to 0. We get generally between 25, a budget of 25 to about 36 grams of added sugar per day. So work within that budget. So it doesn't have to be you know, taste terrible to you, because the reality is, if it doesn't taste good, the likelihood of you sticking with it is just not going to happen. So work with that budget a little bit. Start with fresh fruits, or even dried fruit if you prefer the flavor of that, to give that natural sweetness, and see if that does the trick. And if not, then you got a little bit of wiggle room with choosing some of the other varieties.
Right. There's a lot out there.
There's a
Well,
lot.
Yeah.
You're missing my, as I said earlier, my favorite cereal.
Yeah. What
Grape
is your
nuts.
favorite cereal?
Grape nuts.
Grape nuts. Okay. We're
Grape
trying to
nuts is
find
a
the
great
grapes or the
cereal.
nuts in that. I don't know.
But
Yeah.
it has to be, you know, you have to leave it for a few minutes to absorb the milk, or I do almond milk.
Yeah.
Because it makes it soft, but it's still crunchy.
Yeah. So it's a wonderful cereal, and you know, you can eat it, you know, as is or without soaking it, but they're very, very crunchy for sure. Some people add it into their yogurt or yogurt alternative, but it's
Yeah.
a wonderful cereal. It's very
I could do that for
straightforward.
lunch sometimes.
Yeah.
Add it into my yogurt.
Yeah,
it's very
that's good.
straightforward. It's very simple ingredients. It certainly follows the whole grain guideline we just talked about. It certainly follows the added sugar minimum that we're looking for. There's vitamins, there's minerals in there. So you know, you want to look for those types of things inside your cereal. One word about added sugars. It might say on the nutrition facts, and we've spoken about this before on the show, that if something says, you know, 0 grams or you know, a low gram of sugar per serving, I still want you to look at that ingredient list, because you need to know what you're eating, and it might be naturally low, meaning just unsweetened, or there might be an artificial sweetener in there. So we're not going to talk about artificial sweeteners today. We've spoken about that before, but you do need to know what you're eating. And oftentimes what's keeping that added sugar low is that there's an artificial sweetener in there, like maybe sucralose, or a novel sweetener like stevia or monk fruit. So just know what you're eating, know what's in your food, and don't just look at that nutrition facts, look at the ingredient list also, so you see what's in the ingredient list.
What about hot cereals? There's like a lot of really good hot, I mean, I grew up eating, you know, oatmeal, cream of wheat, and, you know, stuff like that, which I really love. I have it now, and now there's a new thing, overnight oats. which could help you when you're running out that door. It's already done. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, so I feel like overnight oats in the winter, like people like warm, people are attached to like warm things in the wintertime, and in the
Mhm.
summertime, they prefer things that might be cooler and lighter. So I feel like overnight oats are more popular during when the weather is warmer. But it is very easy to make. You can do it with milk or a milk alternative. I actually prefer it made in yogurt because I like it a little bit thicker. There's lots of different recipes out there, but in terms of speed in the morning, it's wonderful because you assemble the night before. You can use any kind of empty jars or containers that you have at home. Put the lid on. In the morning, you give it a stir and you put some fresh berries in there. So in terms of speed, it's fantastic. In terms of the base of it, well, it's obviously an oat based, and this is already unsweetened. We know it's a whole grain. Chances are it's going to be gluten free if that's important to you. So it is a powerhouse of a breakfast, and it meets that how fast can I get myself out the door routine. So that's great. And I have to be honest with you, even making regular oatmeal in the morning, aside from full cooking steel cut, which can take 15-20 minutes, you can have regular rolled oats or the quick cooking steel oats prepared hot in the morning in less than 10 minutes. So if you love oatmeal, it can be done very quickly. And again, you add your liquid base to it, and then you add your nuts and your seeds and things like that, and fresh fruit. And it is really a nice breakfast that will stay with you longer because of that fiber content.
Yeah, sticks to your ribs, as my mom would say.
Yeah.
Eat oatmeal, it sticks to your ribs.
So speaking of fiber, that would be another thing I would encourage parents, consumers to look at that fiber content on the label. And what you're looking for is hopefully no fewer than 3 grams per serving. And the range can be from 3, like what it is in like Cheerios, or it can be up to like 10 grams per serving, as it is with Uncle Sam's flaxseed cereal. So you do want to know that number, particularly to help you identify a cereal that works for you. But also, if you're not used to having a whole lot of fiber in your diet, you want to make sure if it's a big gun like this Uncle Sam's, you go slowly with it. And maybe you start with a portion of a serving.
Right.
Half of a serving rather than the whole thing. You don't want to blow up like a tick and be uncomfortable. So you want to go slowly with that fiber content.
Right. So cereals, yeah, I see, or they're on all over your counter now, and people use them as a quick, bite to eat before they get out. But a lot of people who go out, who are still traveling to work and stuff, they might stop at Burger King or Wendy's or McDonald's and get these, McBreakfasts or whatever it is. In terms of health, what, I mean, once in a while, I mean, I personally not on my list, but a lot of people do get their breakfast from those fast food places because they're fast and it's food, and they can eat it while they're driving, which I don't know, but that seems to be something that people do.
Right. So, we try not to make judgments. I mean, in a perfect world, once again, we'd like to see people move away from processed, convenience foods like that. But, we got to be realistic. So the first advice I would say is the law that requires these restaurants to list the calories on there is a good thing to become familiar with. So use that as your guide. And if your breakfast burrito is coming in at 1,500 calories, maybe there's something else on the menu that would be a better choice for you. So choose the smallest serving size that's available there. So if it's an egg on an English muffin type sandwich, you could do far worse. Maybe back it up with a piece of fresh fruit that you brought from home, and you're not doing too poorly. There is something to be said about having protein in the morning. So, sneaking an egg in might not necessarily, be an awful thing, particularly if people are just unwilling to make it or don't have the time to do it at home. So use that calorie guide as your first guide. And then of course, if that's not going to work, just choose the smallest serving size available to you, and hopefully add some fresh fruit to it in the morning. And at least there's a little bit of a balance.
You mentioned eggs.
Mhm.
Eggs have gotten a bad rap forever, but somehow now they're on like a superfood list.
Yeah.
So, I mean, can you make hard-boiled eggs in advance, or have them in your fridge or whatever? I mean, I think,
Yes.
I eat, eggs, a few times a week.
Yeah.
So, because, with a piece of whole wheat toast and coffee is the other thing. How much coffee should we drink? That's a whole other episode. But eggs, yeah, what's your your RDN assessment on it?
Yes. And you are right. Eggs have certainly gotten a lot of abuse over the last, I would say even decade. Has been all over the place.
Decades, yeah.
And where unless you have been told specifically by your healthcare provider to absolutely avoid eggs, and I would be curious to see under what circumstances that would exist, but most of us would be just fine having an egg or two, several times a day, several times per week. So it's absolutely fine. If you choose to throw out the egg yolk, that is of course your choice. But keep in mind that yolk, as we've discussed, has vitamin D, has the choline, has the biotin in it. So you are throwing out a whole lot, along with that little bit of saturated fat that's in there.
Yeah, plus to me, that's the best part of the egg, is the yolk.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of nutrition in there. And even with the price of eggs gone, I'm glad you brought this up, because it's an issue for a lot of folks. I don't think I need to tell you guys, if you've been in a grocery store, there's signs all over every casing where the eggs are held about the avian flu affecting supply, and the price has gone up. But even with the price of eggs exceeding the way it has, it's still a very reasonable price for the quality of protein that you're getting. So if you like eggs, I would encourage you to try and include them, particularly to start your morning with them. And my son fortunately eats, he's an egg eater, and I can get an egg made. It's not that time consuming.
Right, it's pretty quick.
Yeah, in and out, in under a minute and a half. So
Yeah,
so
I
it's
remember as a
What's that?
excuse me. I remember as a kid, my favorite was in fact, I still do this occasionally, a soft-boiled egg. I crack it up into a cup. Then I take a whole wheat toast and I dunk it. I put it in. I just put the whole thing in the egg.
My mom called that. I'll make you laugh. She called that a cuzzy egg.
A cuzzy egg.
Right. She goes, "You can have a cuzzy egg." I like the name of it, so I ate it.
Listen,
she made that up.
Works.
I don't know.
Give it a cute name.
I don't know, cuzzy egg with the and the toast, the whole wheat toast.
Yeah.
So yeah, is bread bad? I mean, is having like a piece of toast, whole wheat toast or two a bad thing?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I would normally encourage people, because I think balance is important. And again, depending on who I'm talking to, if you've got somebody who eats nothing, a slice of toast is certainly going to be better than nothing. But ideally pairing that piece of toast with some either healthy fat, like let's say avocado, or some type of protein, either an egg or plant-based protein, like some people do scrambled tofu, for example, or you could do one slice of cheese. So something or nut butters,
peanut butter, yeah. A lot of people
is a great combination, and it will give you a little bit more staying power. So even if it's 100% whole wheat bread and you've got fiber in there, you're going to get a little more staying power, meaning that it'll keep you fuller longer if you couple that with either a fat or a protein, and that helps keep you fuller, so you end up not grazing as much throughout the morning.
How bad is white bread? I remember as a kid, before this whole thing,
Wonder Bread.
Wonder Bread or Silver Cup. I don't know if they still even have that now.
They have the studio though, and the Silver Cup studio in Queens.
But that was pure white bread. Is that good or bad?
It depends. You know what? Let's not go by the color alone, because I've got to be honest with you. If there are some serious. I'm not one of them, by the way. I'm an abysmal bread maker, and I'm ashamed to say that. I can't seem to quite get my starter going. But there are some amazing bread makers out there. If you're making your own home white bread, then doesn't get any simpler than that. Sourdough breads, which are technically white, are a little bit easier on the gut than those that are not considered sourdough bread. So I don't like to just say white bread bad, dark bread good, because it kind of puts things into corners without necessarily looking at the details of what's in the actual bread.
Right. Well, there's also other bread, there's rye bread, there's rye
Sure.
sourdough. I mean,
Oh.
sourdough is coming in all different kinds,
Yes.
And how about pumpernickel bread? I don't see that much around anymore.
Yes.
Oh, I used to
Remember
love dark
pumpernickel?
bread.
I don't know
I
whether
love-
it's a Jewish or
No, it's not, but it's hard. It's not that easy to get. We used to get it in all the time in Brooklyn in the bakeries, but
yeah.
it's harder to find now, I think.
And I have to say, I don't know if I've seen, I'm sure it's in certain stores. I just don't know if I've seen pumpernickel flour as one of the options in like my go-to grocery store, but I'm sure it's out there. So, it really does depend on, your taste. Your food has to, remember, it's got to taste good. Your food has to taste good. So there's lots of ways to get a quick breakfast, make it a little bit healthier. If you're even doing a basic cereal, zhuzh it up a little bit by adding fresh fruit, adding some seeds to get a little healthy fat and some of those micronutrients in there. Don't go with a low protein milk or milk alternative. So Malcolm, I heard you mention almond milk before. That's totally fine, but check that protein content and make sure, particularly if you're adding it to a cereal, that hopefully it's got a couple of grams or even more than that.
Okay,
that
how
it's
about
got-
another one of my favorite breakfasts includes bacon.
Yeah, I was going to mention. Yeah,
bacon
bacon,
show?
baby.
I love the smell of bacon as it's cooked.
So does everyone who's like normal.
But can you eat a certain amount of bacon per week, or is that completely a no-no?
What about
Depends
turkey
on who you're
bacon?
talking to, so you're talking to me, and I think that, some bacon, some real bacon, and for me, every once in a while, once a week might seem a little much to me, but if you're having it once a month, I don't think anybody can say for sure. The purists will say never, it's processed and, it's really, really high in sodium. But there's lots of things in life that, aren't necessarily wonderful for us, but they taste good. They're nostalgic. So I think within the realms of, just not, very frequently would be, a reasonable way to include it.
Yeah.
And I would even say, if you like, there's certainly turkey bacon, chicken bacon, and things like that. But you really need to read those labels, because just because something says chicken or turkey bacon doesn't necessarily mean it's any lower in saturated fat or sodium. So it might have that health halo of being maybe a little bit better, but compare those labels so that if you're making that choice and you're choosing chicken or turkey bacon, you're doing it for the right reason, and not foregoing regular bacon simply for, of what you think the chicken and turkey.
Another big battle they had, at least when I was growing up, butter versus margarine.
Yeah.
But we're covering a lot of topics today, but
Yeah. We just drifted from cereal.
No,
But it's part of breakfast, right? You're gonna smear some butter or toast, I guess.
Yeah, you guys have known me long enough, and I am choose the real, just consume less of it if it is something like. So generally my answer is butter, real butter. You just, you can have that great, incredible flavor for a lot less than you think, rather than slapping down, a ton of margarine type spreads. So do the real, just choose less. So that would be my take on that. So lots of options out there. We try to make it reasonable, for people. You don't want to say never. Like I said, ideally folks should really not eat their breakfast on the fly. But if it's a choice on the road between a giant McMuffin, and it could be any muffin, by the way, not just McDonald's
any muffin. We'll just put muffin in.
Or like I said, an egg on an English muffin in a fast food place. Neither is perfect, but I would say go with the staying power and go with the egg, because chances are you're gonna have fewer calories. So
yeah, it's a matter of choice, a matter of health, a matter of what,
course.
you know, your doctor says. I mean, I agree in terms of the butter. I mean, I asked my, you know, my cardiologist, and they tend to go to the real, as you said, and less of it. You know,
Right.
that's the way the way to go.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot to be said for breakfast. It's an important meal of the day, and
Yeah.
I'm a breakfast. My mom would say, "Eat breakfast like a lady," and I'm like,
What does
trying
that
to
mean?
get everyone just sit there and have a leisurely breakfast.
Anyway, guys,
And
our
so
breakfast time is up.
leisurely is the key word, right?
Our breakfast time is up. But when we speak about breakfast, one of my favorite times, well, especially in my single days, brunch, which is
That's a
about
whole other
11 o'clock.
that's a whole other topic.
Yeah, and
Brunch in New York City.
with the mimosa,
Right. Well,
champagne
Malcolm,
and
how did
orange
we
juice.
go from overnight oats to brunch, a boozy brunch with mimosas?
because people want to have fun. I guess, you know, that's it.
And
That's
well, you have
Beatles
I'm not
vodka,
saying I don't like it. I do.
vodka and tomato juice.
vodka and tomato juice. Boy, okay, now we're going off the rails. All right, so
Anyway,
I'm gonna
wrap it up
wrap it up and take us out, so you can get more
before I get drunk.
For more information on this, you'll check out with Courtney. So thanks for joining us for Courtney on Health. To get more info, follow Courtney on her Facebook page, which is Courtney on Health, on Instagram at CLG Wellness, and on TikTok, which is also at CLG Wellness. Visit her website, CourtneyGravenese.com. For past shows, you can go to MalcolmPresents.com and theManyShadesOfGreen.com. Actually, current and past. This has been Courtney on Health. Smart, sound nutrition, strong, safe fitness, and we will catch you again next time.
See you next time.
Thanks, Courtney. And they say bon appetit.
Bon appetit. Bon appetit. No. Okay.
Bye.
It was good, Max.
Okay. Yeah. You know.